a growing concern. I read a report recently that says that fully 1/3 of our charter schools, independent charter schools, have about vacancies of more than 25%. And I'm concerned that we have a lot of district schools that are partially filled and a lot of charter schools that are partially filled. And it makes me concerned that a school with 290 students thinks that it will get 600 students. I'm not disputing that they believe that, but I also know that the 7 charter schools that were chartered this past August, had 1,735 seats allocated to them, of which they filled only 700. And I'm worried. I'm worried that we're going to build a facility that won't fill. If it will fill, that's a different story. But that's my concern about these things where we're building things. Because it'd be different if all of our schools were full and all of the charter schools were full. You'd say, well, my God, there's plenty of capacity. But I've talked to some charter school folks in the southeast area who are grossly not meeting their numbers. It's nothing to do with this project. It's a general concern about building more space in a district that has both district space and charter space already. And I don't know what to do about it. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
Because this assumes that they will actually get the 310 more students. But will they? I mean, those that came in August said we're going to get 1,735, and they got 700 collectively, 1,000. So that's the concern I'm having is, do you build a school hoping that they're right? And I'm not saying I have an answer. I'm just saying I'm really worried about the whole notion of how we build new space in a district that has lots of empty space in existing schools and even lots of existing space in charter schools. Not every charter school, but a third of them. 33%, I counted them off that list that you handed out. And some of them have as much as 60% empty space. So how do we evaluate, I'm asking the superintendent and everybody else, how do we evaluate a request to build new space in a district that has space and that has charter schools that have space? Not really focusing on this, but on the general problem of it, because we said those 1,735 spaces would be filled and only 700 were. They spend a lot of money. I'm not just talking about us. They spend a lot of money. I know Vaughn. I had no problem. You're going to fill it. I have no problem with that. But I don't know this, and it makes me very concerned. And it has nothing to do with this school or your project. You may be a wonderful school. You may fill it the day it's open. But you see what my general concern is. It's about the whole notion of, do you expand new space when you have so much empty space and when even charters have empty space? I mean, that's the question, really.
So it's a good question, and we have been at work for the last many months bringing to the board shortly sort of a view of the assets that we do have to put them in context for this board of a long-term space plan. And a long-term space plan not just for a school or a name, a traditional school or charter, but rather the community it serves, what our expectations are for this. Is it a growing, a shrinking community? Is it well-served, not well-served, and all those things? But it starts first with our facilities team in conjunction with some outsiders have been trying to start with what do we have? And how do we match that against the students we have and we think we'll have 5 or 10 years from now? Because, as you say, we're not building this building for next year. We're building it for a lifetime.
Right.
And so let's make sure we make good decisions about that. And let's make sure that all of the aspects of facilities are coherent with that. So if it's being used and you're allocated 10 rooms, you pay for 10 rooms. If you're using allocated 15 rooms, you can't pay for 10, you can't pay for 20. You should pay for 15. So we've asked, and we'll be coming back in a month or 6 weeks, not tomorrow, but a month or 6 weeks with that asset plan. And we've asked the longer-term demographers and others to start to weigh in on that, because we're doing too many of these with the rearview mirror and not looking forward.
Well, and I'll just add, and I think it's an important point to raise, because so much of this is done in an ad hoc basis. And so in the last hour, we've talked about how charters are coming in and, quote unquote, taking district space. And now we're saying that they don't need to build space because we have space. And because we don't have that strategic plan, and I know the independent task force has been saying for a while they'd get it to us, we can't look at those demographic projections coupled with our space and figure out how do we match kids to high-quality seats in the way that best works for all parties involved. And I think we had that problem too. The district built 131 new schools and now have areas where enrollment is declined. We have areas where enrollment is increasing. And I just see in looking at ECAR and ECAS projections, which are the district's internal systems, that we're not even getting it right. And if you look at norm day versus projection versus actual
Oh, no, this is a
data,
problem. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
single anybody out here. I'm just worried about building space in a district that has space.
Yeah, and I think if we can get to some of those long-term agreements and mitigate those annual tensions, so just agreeing with you and saying that, and appreciate the superintendent kind of bringing some urgency to this, because it's about stepping back and figuring out how are we matching kids to high-quality seats across school model. And if the thesis is that we can do it with this existing space, I'm sure some of our charter partners would appreciate that, so they don't have to go out and build. But we need to figure out that give and take.
Yeah, and I think those questions are good. I will share that perspective from District 2. This school was co-located at Belmont for a long time, and as you know, downtown Magnet School is still in the old book room. So while there's space in general, we did build 131 schools while we had 2 close campuses over far in the valley. And I know there's been an investment strategy to create something else, but I just want to lend a lens on, for example, in the Belmont community that in 2004 had 41,000 students, larger than San Jose Unified, right? They are living a world where I just hired a BD2 staff person who graduated from Contreras in 2012. So we are still moving toward, while some places have had space for a very long time, this year I cut the ribbon with charter partners at Accelerated Charter School, at University Prep, and there is a third one that is, Endeavor in Boyle Heights. But this school also is challenging the district. We don't do 600-seat schools in my area. There are places where some schools have gotten to be very small. But, you know, Garfield still has 2,600 kids. And yes, like Mr. Montes said earlier, it used to have 4,700, right? So the levels of health are beyond just space available. And I will ask you for help. Yeah, the board policy told our charter partners to go where we were overcrowded, and therefore I've got some 20,000 families that really didn't choose to not be in their neighborhood school. But as you know, Virgil said yes to 800 and then put another 800 on the bus. And so while LA Unified has today been able to get some health and achievement is higher, and despite underfunding, because when I was born, California was 5th in the nation in per pupil spending, and today we can celebrate greater achievement, but we're still lowest in, you know, at 44 in the nation. So the questions of adequacy and what does it take urban America to get health?
Right.
Especially like the child from Mendez. That Mendez is a school opened in 2010 with 49% graduation and moved quickly to 90%. But it takes a different strategy, right? And it takes ownership. So in the Belmont community that we have asked 5-year-olds to get on buses.
I know.
Right? Today, we have partners that, I mean, this project has been over time, has state dollars, has district dollars, I mean, bond dollars that have gone through the process. And the issue of building a school, because they want to avoid the chaos we talked about earlier of haves and have-nots and who's get, you know, the campus, while there's, I'm going to say 50,000, and if there's a staff person who knows my numbers out, I think there's over 50,000 kids who share space on co-located charter schools. And that is, as you know, bigger than most districts in California, right? So I am supportive of this district, and I'm in this school, and I am asking the board to support this project largely because we have made a commitment to voters on how we were going to share bond dollars. And there is a challenging question of how does LA Unified, we struggle to create small, right? We struggle to fund at adequate levels. And we are challenged by people of low income, non-privileged communities having access to quality. Because while Garfield has absolutely moved to the level of Bravo, where they both are California distinguished schools, that is not yet something that we can say is across the board. So there's an issue of resource, there's an issue of where is the school in its developing towards health, and where is the school community? I mean, we have community schools, like you know, at RFK, our ambassador project, where there are 6 schools, and they are working to play together. And there are 6 different LA Unified teacher-led academies. And they are, we just opened an immigrant legal center because the school said we need help, and UCLA rose. So in that vein, this school is designed to serve this area. God, I love Belmont and the Sentinels that don't quit, but it has been co-located in so many ways that we haven't been able, Superintendent Martinez and others are trying to support that legacy school, because the other bright and shiny LA Unified, which we, as you know, Roybal, Cortines, Contreras,
right.
and RFK, right? It is not, yes, there is space, and there is space, but there is not health, academic wellness, or community wellness at the same levels in each of those schools. And I think that is the challenge for us as we, maybe we can spend a little bit of time on how many dollars are left at these construction projects, because maybe we can talk about, it would be, I have one school, Quincy Jones, that was built and opened with Synergy. And so this school has always been co-located from the beginning, and there is harmony, and they work together. But it is very difficult when schools feel like that space took something from mine, and then the principal is unsupported or the staff is unsupported. So this group, I know, is trying to have their building where they are avoiding for themselves and their host campus the trauma that we discussed, right? And I think until we, the district, can figure out how to address some of the challenges, we're going to see people trying to handle it themselves, and public dollars that have been designated for charter augmentation are part of that. Okay, that's me.
Ms. Garcia?
Yeah.
I just want to appreciate your comments. They made a lot of sense to me. Thank you.
You're welcome. If no one else has a comment, Mr. Okeke?
Yes.
Board members, objections?
Okeke votes yes.
I'm going to abstain, not specifically to your project, but to the question that we're needing to deal with. So I'll
Okay.
just abstain on this one.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, so ordered.